so myth number 2.
Myth number 2.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're trying to get towards. Look how happy those guys are.
You know how long we had to make them sit like that?
I know, yeah.
Okay.
How many drinks we had to give them. Okay.
Visionary integrator. Okay.
Number 2.
This guy, all the hats. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what myth number 2. The visionary or integrator should also facilitate the quarterly and the annual sessions. I mean, like, why not, right? He spoke about readiness factors. Let's save a few bucks. We could figure this out on our own. We could just kind of get through these sections. They seem pretty easy. Now, let's just one idea before we jump into this. I'm not trying to sell you, as Chris said in the beginning, no, you need to work with that professional EOS implementer. I'm here to show you what does it look like when you work with somebody who understands those tools better. If that's not the right thing for you, for whatever readiness it is, that's fine. That's okay. We're not trying to say that you're doing anything wrong. You're not. But I want to show you a little bit about what does it look like when you do. And unfortunately, what does it look like when you don't? Because I've seen both sides. There is a great book by Dan Sullivan that Ben Hardy, who spoke last year at the conference, if you have seen the stuff, Dr. Ben Hardy, Who, Not How. I mean, those 3 words answer so much, but they're also, like everything, so deep. Who, not how is simply, as a visionary, as an owner, even in the integrator role, in that higher level leadership team, you have to start asking yourself that question. How is very linear, as he says. Like, if you're going to try to figure out how to do everything, you're going to go really, really slow. And you're going to make a million mistakes. You need to start asking yourself a different question. Who do I need, not how do I do it? Everybody has a very unique ability. Dan Sullivan said this great line. He said, if you have a weakness and you really work on that weakness, you know what you end up with? A strong weakness, not a strength. The strengths are the stuff that you're naturally, whatever you believe in, God gave you your ability to do what you do. And that's the area that we teach to delegate and elevate. That means you are very unique in certain areas. Everything else you should be delegating over time with all the readiness factors to the right people. You have to start asking yourself that question, who do I need? So let's talk about this myth about maybe we don't need that implementer. I mean, we could just kind of run these sessions on our own. So I want to tell you a little bit of what my experience as an implementer, what I've seen over the course of what this looks like. So one thing I've seen is that, like I said, things go very slow and they misuse or misunderstand some of these tools and they end up making such complexity. I've seen where I took over for a company that was kind of trying to wing it, like, hey, we read the book, we figured it out, and they have a scorecard of like 48 items on it, and the whole level 10 meeting is just getting through that scorecard, and they're IDSing each one as they're going through it, so which means the real issues they're not even getting to. I've seen VTOs where I walk in and they're like, okay, these are the 38 goals that we're gonna work on this year. And I'm like, oh yeah, how's that going? There's a lot of interesting ideas and tools that us as implementers, we've been there, we've seen it. We have the unique ability and privilege of sitting in multiple different types of industries and meetings and with all kinds of different people. And we've seen people who have made a lot of these different mistakes. So when you're working with a person who is able to guide you and help you understand where some of those pitfalls are, you will ultimately be able to go a lot faster. As a matter of fact, prior to me doing this implementer thing, I wasn't born an implementer. I'm an electrician by trade. I used to hang up those kind of things. And my first EOS conference actually was in 2019 in Atlanta. And I was there because the boss that I was working for, he's like, go down there, learn some stuff, bring it back, tell us what you learned. When I went there, I think he regretted it after. I was like, oh, I should become an implementer. And then all of a sudden he's like, no, that's not what I wanted you to do. But hey, it kind of worked out okay. And it was very interesting. We had an implementer, and he's like, oh, I could do this on my own. And then he eventually realized he has no idea how to do it. But he said, you seem to get this stuff. Like, you understand that values and VTO stuff. You should teach this to us. So I, by de facto, became like this internal implementer guy. And it kind of worked, and I was helping the company roll this stuff out. But I cannot tell you, I mean it honestly, leading those leadership teams, and I wasn't even the visionary or the integrator, was impossible. Because you know how hard it was to keep my boss accountable? Like, oh, well, I want to get fired, so I guess, okay, you don't have to do that, Rock. Okay, next one.
And I see so many heads nodding because we've all been there. It's a lot easier to view it from the outside and say the obvious thing, and then say, go get it.
Yeah, like for me, worst case, so the client will fire me and I'll go get another client, I hope. But to lose my whole job would suck. I don't want that to happen. So that all of a sudden the conversation becomes very, very difficult. To keep my own team accountable and I cannot even explain how difficult it is literally to wear those different hats, because at the same time of that meeting, I'm also working on my rocks and my accountability. So I had to figure out when should I do this and when should I do that. And it got really, really, really confusing because it's not supposed to flow that way. So let's talk a little bit about practicality, also what happens I've seen when people try to kind of wing it. Again, if it's the readiness factor, good, let's get you there. But if you're just, I know all this. I've seen people, like, they do the level 10 meeting, like, yeah, we skipped that check-in thing. Like, well, we don't need a check-in. We know each other. And the check-in, the best is where they're like, oh, well, my good news is that, everybody's good, family's good. Like, that's not good news. There's a reason Gino inserted this check-in. And I'm bringing it back again later when you're going to hear from Kim Scott and Radical Candor. You know what the check-in is for? And again, an implementer who understands these tools will help you understand the science and the psychology behind the tool. Like, why is it there? It's there for a reason. Yeah. When you're working with your team to solve issues, but you don't really know them that well, and I don't mean know them, like we work with them, we know them, but you don't know them outside of work. I know you go to dinner, and you know what happens when you go for dinner? I always tell when I do the annual sessions for my teams, I'm like, when you team health is we all go to dinner, like Chris showed for everybody's on their phone. This guy's coming early, she's leaving late, he's in the bathroom, you're just talking about work anyway, so it's just like a level 10 meeting at the restaurant. That's not what it is, but if you start playing a game, start playing like once a month or once a quarter, play Monopoly or something, or go bowling. All of a sudden, the other side of the person starts to come out. Yeah. You're like, oh, I didn't know that about that person. I had it with a person I was working with when we were at our annual before I was an implementer. I was supposed to really work with this guy, and we just weren't clicking. Nothing bad, we just didn't know each other very well. And the night between day 1 and day 2 of our annual, we were waiting. We're all going out to movie or bowling, whatever it was, years ago. And we sat at the bar, and I'm not trying to say you should get drunk or anything like that, but that is accidentally what happened. And we were both sitting there, and we both started and all of a sudden, we had everything to talk about. All of a sudden, we got to know each other. And I started to care about the person because I started to know him better. And now, because I care about him, it made every other conversation easier. It made issue solving so much easier. The check-in in the level 10 is there for that reason. Every week, you're talking about something within your ability of how far you want to go to understand the other person, because now you understand that better, and now you're going to solve issues better. Now you can have harder conversations. And if you're self-implementing, Gino doesn't have that. There's no appendix in the back that says, and here's the nugget on that. There's a unique ability that us as implementers have, that we understand these tools. We've seen it, that we could teach you some of the tricks of the trade, the ability, not to mention, even going to the gym. I could go to the gym and I work out with a trainer. The trainer helps me. I know, he's going to be there. I better be there. And he helps me work out and get there a lot quicker. All the different accountabilities, the speed.
It's a great point that we can, again, this is a practice and we can always go deeper. And there's always someone who can help us go a little bit deeper, get a little bit better.